Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, May 21st. So there was a new expansion, and with the new expansion, I spent like 4.5 hours covering that expansion, which means now I need to I'm gonna run out of steam if I don't rush very quickly through the news and the daily quest, and we may have to abandon the daily quest after all the news is covered. My ambitions for the follow list cleanup doesn't seem like that's gonna happen either. One of the tie-in things was clearing all the expert levels, and the easiest way to accomplish that certainly would be to just cheat and look up the answers, and I may have to do that. I don't know if I really want to spend any extra time trying to figure it out after spending a couple hours. We'll be playing Havencraft today. So yeah, let's come over here, ranked rotation, Havencraft. As far as the accountability section, I did a little bit of Psychonauts. I'm still not really enjoying Psychonauts. I still find it super exhausting. The last thing I really needed was a new expansion and tie-in event to happen on Shadowverse to take more of my time and exhaust me more, while Psychonauts was also exhausting me. But well, I seriously doubt I'll get any recording done later today. I also have been doing research, I suppose you would call it. There was that announcement that there was going to be a Stargate SG-1 crossover spin-off game set after, I believe, Season 7 of a 10-season series. Why specifically Season 7? I believe the reason why is that after about Season 7, you start to deal with the Ori and the Ancients a lot. Really watching Stargate SG-1 though, there's a little bit more random episodes that have nothing to do with anything and could be just aired in syndication in random places than, say, Star Trek The Next Generation or even Deep Space Nine. Although I'd argue Deep Space Nine needed more random episodes that didn't have to do with the Dominion War or the wormhole. On the other hand, I love Babylon 5, and almost every single episode, except for, I believe, 2, have to do with a long-running linear story, and not a single puzzle piece in that can be removed well. But yeah. So I was kind of skimming Stargate SG-1. It's got some problems as a TV show. I know that it definitely has a rabid fan base, but the fashion and the costumes are a major issue. There's a major problem on Netflix in the fact that the pilot/first episode has just full frontal nudity. Although, I guess by modern standards, since the lady had pubic hair, I don't know if that even counts as nudity, since everybody else is nowadays fairly shaved, and but anyways, that was insisted by Showtime, who originally had the rights and were in charge of making Stargate SG-1, and it was only done in the very first episode. But because of that has Stargate SG-1 labeled for all 10 seasons as being TVMA, when in practicality and everywhere else it's labeled as being TV-14. There were also 2 edits to that first episode that removed the nudity, because the producers didn't like it anyways. Yeah, it certainly could lead you down a rabbit hole of 10 seasons. to potentially try and see if there was any other nudity, and there isn't. It's all fairly tame. I think there's problems with SG1 in the fact that the actors didn't really want to go for as long as 10 seasons, so they switched out actors a couple of times, which that's a problem too. Once you lose one major character, you pretty much should wrap it up. And honestly, in modern scales, any sci-fi show that even went 5 seasons would have been considered a huge success. So they could have spun it off earlier and done SG1, Atlantis, and there was another one that I can't even remember the name of. SG1 also, in its later seasons, turned into more of a space battle show. There was a lot of sets and CGI of spaceships, whereas you practically had almost no sci-fi space elements in the original seasons. But yeah, a real-time strategy game set in the SG1 universe, right when you're either fighting Anubis or one of the final Gould characters, that works fine. I think for most of the fans. I don't think the fans particularly felt like the Ori were a particularly good bad guy, and it does not wrap up well at all. It seems like they were told maybe 4 episodes before they were canceled that they were canceled. I feel like SG1, like most sci-fi shows near the end, because sci-fi was paying the budget, probably canceled it 2 or 3 times. But yeah, I think you start with the Gould, you end with the Gould as far as SG1. I think that makes the most sense. There's problems with a lot of the sets throughout SG1 in that a lot of planets ended up looking like they were Egyptian themed, and then when they built a new set, a lot of planets would look like they were medieval themed, or then when they built a new set, a lot of planets would look like they were more nature themed. It got like obviously repetitive, and clearly they can't just have they couldn't afford a new yeah, they clearly could not afford a new set every single time, and that's really what they needed.
You're in good hands.
Let's go ahead and evolve this and attack, even though I normally wouldn't want to do that.
Such a good guinea pig.
Yeah, SG1 also has some gun and technology issues I would want to address. They have like these P90, I believe, guns that they use a lot, which, yeah, those guns are more used by Russian military and Middle East than they are the US military. Plus, they were still using bullets a lot, or what looked like bullets a lot, when they had already gotten alien technology that were more like electrical beam shots. I wonder if it was just cheaper for them to install squibs and flash bangs on people getting shot than it was to do the electric CGI element. It probably was at the time. Probably saved them a ton of budget to shoot bullets instead. But they probably should just be consistent with that and just say that we are not going to use alien technology. We need to prove the superiority of the Earthlings' might. But yeah. There's too many characters in SG1. It's kind of like, it's not as bad as um, Star Trek: The Next Generation as the number of characters, but then a lot of characters barely get any episodes either, or even any screen time. Where I feel like any random episode of Next Generation, you're gonna have Worf pop up, you're gonna have Data pop up, even if it's not a Worf or Data episode, that they're gonna want to be on screen a little bit. Whereas in SG1, the General, who is kind of an unnecessary character, he's a terrible character compared to Picard, it is very often missing, and then the President is almost never shown. There's several people just in charge of opening the Stargate, and all of that. Those characters are fairly redundant. There's a doctor character that sometimes shows up, but then that is also split between the several scientist characters. I could definitely see, though, if you take the general concept of Stargate and the general concept of there's these aliens, they're pretending to be gods, they've dominated the universe, that's really what you would want to see at it. I think you probably get rid of the worms and the Gould being worms and parasites. Little parasites is a little on the nose for modern time. But yeah, if you have a higher budget, there's something to that I think would work in a reboot. But also I think you run into the Star Wars problem where whatever you do new, the fans may hate it. And if you don't have the fans on board, you basically have nobody on board.
There is not a soul without sin.
And you could spend a lot of budget.
Punish the wicked, spare the innocent.
I do feel like if you really thought it through, there is a decent chance that some of the Star Trek and I forget the name of the other one that was basically Star Trek without actually having the rights to Star Trek, the Seth MacFarlane one, which I assume that has just been canceled now since it got hidden behind some streaming service. But yeah, the new Star Treks could have taken a lot of the stories from SG1 and just redone them, because they're very simplistic and standard stories. And that was right about the time when Eureka and Warehouse 13 and probably 2 or 3 other shows on Sci-Fi were all doing just about the same story anyways. The writers didn't have to work that hard to do that, pull it off. I imagine Stargate would try to be a bit more international at the beginning of the series, instead of it being just a US military operation for the first couple years. Alright, well, me talking about SG1 and saying I was watching some of it on Netflix is not really that informative. Well, we'll have to see how much of a real-time strategy game that really would be. You can't really bring back any visuals of any of those actors. They're all too old at this point. You could probably get them to voice act in the game. A lot of the actors in SG1, even on day one, were too old of characters, and you would want to have somebody younger by modern standards. A younger team. turn there. Okay, so let's go through the news. Here, TechRaptor has a review for Skate City. Let's see what they think about that. Doesn't look particularly as bright as I think it probably should. Looks kind of dim. Looks like it's a 2.5D game. They've given a 6.0. Skate City is a chilled out but ultimately shallow experience. Don't go in expecting anything too involving and you should have fun. Pros, chilled out music and visuals, simple gameplay, easy to pick up and play, cause not much content, and various challenges can be annoying. There is almost an argument for me, as somebody who's not really into skating that well and probably isn't that good at skating games. I haven't played a lot of them. It might be interesting to start on something more simplistic, but I don't think so. I think this is just too simplistic. Okay. What do we want to do here? Let's get rid of that, just in case that was something important to them. Let's get rid of this, in case that was something important to them. Let's hit that.
This is not the end.
Yep. That's how I lost. That's what I figured that was gonna happen. Not only was that not effective, that was long, which there's the only thing worse than failing is taking a really long time to fail. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Take-Two sales deluge reveals that Grand Theft Auto 5 has sold over 145 million copies, which that seems like a lot. It's going to be weird to have this advertising background and music playing.
I'm pretty strong, you know.
Well, it looks like the other shoe may have just dropped. Gamasutra has an article here. Microsoft will take charge of future iterations of the Outer Worlds. Update here. A spokesman for Private Division, the American publisher owned by Take-Two, has explained the company won't be involved with future iterations of the Outer Worlds franchise, noting that Obsidian and owner Microsoft will be still steering the ship moving forward. Remember, Microsoft acquired ZeniMax, and I suppose ZeniMax is one of their child companies was Obsidian. Microsoft has been looking to expand its stable first-party titles for some time. So Take-Two Interactive, I imagine, is going to just be published by Microsoft. The future versions of Outer Worlds will be future sequels and such will be published. Although future iterations actually boils down to saying that if a deluxe version or a remastered version of the Outer Worlds comes out, that too will be published by Microsoft. And we probably could have seen that coming as far as Microsoft wanting to be the publisher and funder of games for companies they own and possibly companies they don't own. But it is definitely also a shot across the bow as far as Take-Two, and I don't know if we did some research here. Let's see if we can get a somewhat relevant and recent listing as far as what games they've published. Right, so here we come over to Wikipedia, games published, list of Take-Two interactive games. Okay, scroll down here to recent ones, not things from 2001. Fatal Frame 3, 2006 on that list. 2006 is a little too late. Onk the show 2007. Seriously, have they not published a game since 2007? 14 years ago? What happened to Take-Two Interactive? That doesn't sound right. I may just be forgetting, though. Maybe they changed their name to something else.
I present you a gift from my lord.
Okay.
For victory!
Yeah, if we look at the real Wikipedia, it was founded and acquired. It founded private division, I suppose, and that's probably what they've been publishing under in 2017. And then there's several different companies. As far as developers, it's mostly 2K. So 2K and Take-Two are the same, but then they also have Ghost Story Games, Playdots, Private Division, and Rockstar Games and Social Point. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. So let's see what Private Division has published. Yeah. Private Division has published Kerbal Space Program Enhanced Edition, Ancestors, The Humankind, and the Outer Worlds, Disintegration, Ollie Ollie World, and Kerbal Space Program. So I wouldn't be surprised if this really is more of a case that they don't even care.
You're in good hands.
I suppose I've lost some of my edge.
That is a possibility that 2K just does not care that they lost the publishing deal there, because it doesn't seem like they actually have a lot of investment in publishing games anyways. But I imagine Microsoft is going to go this route more and more. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to get in bed with another publisher unless they just want to not fund a game. The danger certainly there is you're going to get to a level in which it's like the anime production companies, where you have 6 or 7 different people making up a production company, all maybe wanting something different or thinking in slightly a different way, and it makes a oversaturated product and a product that's very demanding on its creators. Like, from what it seems, the reason that the production companies have been able to negotiate such good contracts for them, it's left all the animators in Japan overworked even more than normal, because they have to take more and more jobs, and they're getting less and less pay for more and more jobs to animate the anime part of a production company's multimedia concept. And I'm sure the exact same types of negotiations are happening for companies making video games around that. The Idolmaster crossover with Shadowverse here probably had to jump through a little bit more hoops than they should have just to have the crossover promotion. So I don't know if the West would embrace that way of doing business, and I don't know if Microsoft would really want to embrace doing that way of business, or just keep it all in-house and keep all the profit and invest all the money. It's hardly like Microsoft is aching for money. Although, you never know what's going to happen with Bill Gates at this point. Like, the walls maybe collapsing around Bill Gates, and more of maybe his bad deeds in the past are coming back to haunt him. And even if he doesn't get caught out doing anything particularly bad, him being divorced probably puts a lot of shares in the hand of Melinda Gates, who may take a seat on the board and may very well want to take Microsoft in a different direction. Although it might not hurt if Microsoft did kind of split up into different subdivisions, because the video game designer of Microsoft, part of that, is not particularly well suited to work with the back-end server side of Microsoft or the Office software side of Microsoft. Yeah, and speaking of Office software, while it's not video game related, apparently Google Docs is going to now scanning, although scanning might be a little bit extreme. It's running an algorithm probably locally on what you're typing. Maybe not though, because Google Docs are online always, and they probably have always been scanning all the content in every single document. But they're gonna suggest more gender neutral titles and more passive language instead of aggressive language, which, yeah, literal word policing on your Office document software is kind of ridiculous. Of course, I think already had implemented that on Gmail a long time ago, so if you do it subtly, people might benefit from it. Of course, you can always go to Open Office or whatever other software you want to use if you're actually using any kind of Office software. I very rarely do anything with Office software. The only thing I do is keep my schedule in an Excel sheet in Google Docs, and it's kind of ridiculous to potentially have to install and update software just to deal with one Excel sheet. Let's see. We play this, or do we do this? Do I want to evolve? No, I think we're good. Moving on with video game news, Gamasutra has an article here. To support 2 players, arcade mode, Deathloop levels are more open than ever, which I suppose that's good. I don't feel like the Deathloop concept, as I understand it, which I barely understand it, I don't think that makes a lot of sense if it is in small linear hallways. Gamasutra has an article. Air Syndicate is looking for an art outsource producer, which I guess means you're in charge of outsourcing all the art to other people. Which, yeah, outsourcing typically never considered a good thing. Very, very rarely considered a good thing. Okay. Do I want to evolve? I think if I don't evolve, I'm gonna end up losing. Let's see. Tech Raptor has an article here. Free Radical design has been revived for a new Time Splitters game, which honestly, I think it was like a month ago that I said they probably should make a new Time Splitters. The concept around the Time Splitters where you could just have a bunch of different environments, a bunch of different enemies, and you're just generally running around and doing first-person shooting
For the
makes
end is near.
a very simplistic concept work.
Do not seek what is not there.
So yeah, everything's getting remade. It would make sense. There is enough of a rabid fan base of Time Splitters. I've never played any of the Time Splitters games. This is going to include the founders David Durock and Steve Ellis, basically bringing back a company that went out of business at some point, and they're going to be working on new Time Splitters. I don't know how they got the rights or why the rights wouldn't have transferred over to somebody else in the meantime, but
There is not a soul without sin.
that seems like that happened.
Winds of light, show your might.
On the other hand,
Punish the wicked.
there is a big problem with Time Splitters games
A fitting
in
end.
2021 or later. Like, Time Splitters literally had a character with like fairly big boobs, and on her shirt was the word slut written, and it always was that teenage gamer bro college frat boy comedy, and I just don't know if that plays. So I don't know what your story really can be with Time Splitters. It's got to be probably a soft reboot. It's probably got to be a lot more serious. I don't think you can just have dumb fun with it. A lot of the staff, after working on Time Splitters, went on to Far Cry, and you can see how, I mean, they went on to Crisis, not Far Cry.
I'm coming
And you can
for
see in
you.
Crisis, it is a much more serious game. So you would expect that a new Time Splitters game would play a lot like whatever the most recent Crisis game is. And you're just going to definitely have some issues with tone. Tone is going to be a killer on Time Splitters.
I will
Let's see
rise.
if we can. I really don't have extra time to be doing extra research, but let's try to be thorough here too. See, Time Splitters had Time Splitters, Time Splitters 2, and Time Splitters Future Perfect, Time Splitters 4, Time Splitters Rewind, Time Splitters 2 HD Remake, and an untitled Time Splitters games are also listed on Wikipedia as future or canceled projects. And so they've been trying for a very long time to make something. Apparently in as early as 2018, Koch Media announced they had acquired the IPs and publishing rights to Time Splitters. So yeah, there's some issues there, I would say. As far as that, they may drop the story mode completely in Time Splitters if they can't do much better than what they have.
Envelop all with our combined
Yeah.
ability to dodge its Spala.
Let's see.
I shall give birth
Yeah,
to a new
I love
world.
this. Of course I do.
If we look over here, like, your main male character is just this guy with these goggles and bald and very generic. You have a female character with red hair and a mask and basically her thighs showing. And then you have this character with the skullgirl outfit, I guess is what you call, in the baseball bat. there's a lot of different iterations and drawings. Certainly. You're going to have to massively improve the graphics and probably have to rebuild everybody. There's a monkey, too. Yeah, you're pretty much going to have to redraw each character and rethink everything heavily. Time Splitters was somewhat like GoldenEye, so you need some major improvements there too. Rethink all of the levels, but kind of remake all the levels too. Here, you have more craziness. I don't think they have that many characters though. It's maybe 3 characters of note, and that's it.
I shall give birth to a new world.
So yeah, I kind of eagerly await seeing them trying to take that on. On the other hand, it is kind of a couple of dinosaurs bringing back something from their time frame. It very well might be a company that is very much like Double Fine, where they just can't get things done with the modern technology and the modern way of doing business. The employees that actually have to do the coding and the animation wouldn't get the right kind of leadership or the right kind of support. Like if, for instance, Psychonauts had been run by somebody a little bit younger, I think, than Tim Schafer running Double Fine, you almost certainly would have had a Psychonauts 2 out by now, like a long time ago. You probably would have had it come out 2 years after the first Psychonauts game. But you run into that problem, I think, with Double Fine, where the people are just kind of old and tired, for lack of a better description, who are in charge, and they just don't have that fire in them anymore. And I think video game companies have yet to figure out how to put the old and tired people who are in the upper management in the right position where they can oversee things without actually being a speed bump. You also see that with like Cyan, the makers of Myst, where the creators of those games used very old technology to make the original Myst game, and the company was effectively not doing any new production at all for decades, and only recently have they had to make an entire generational shift to put newer people in charge and get back to the business of making games. You can say that the same for Valve, which there is a trailer out for that Battle for Blood, which I watched the trailer, and it's weird because they introduced like 6 or 8 characters, and I'm fairly certain it will only be 4 players per session. So a couple of characters are just not going to be in the group, unless they are just going to expand to more than 4. And if they do, then the question is, where's the number 4 coming from, or what does the number 4 relate to if there's not 4 players playing? Whereas like Left 4 Dead, which is basically all Battle for Blood is a modernized take on Left 4 Dead, had you play with 4 characters.
I'll get production up and running.
Of course, having the number 4 in your title doesn't make a lot of sense, because Left 4 Dead, then Left 4 Dead 2 is a problem. And I guess it also makes an argument that because they called their game Left 4 Dead, that skips them past, it could have skipped them, I suppose, past the the Valve "we can't name anything" #3 issue, but they didn't make a game called Left 5 Dead to be the sequel for Left 4 Dead, which would have probably been smarter on their part if they had just Left 5 Dead, and then the number just goes up and up and up, and you play as 5 characters potentially, or you have a selection of 5 characters with the 4 character balance. But yeah, once they named it Left 4 Dead 2, then pretty much they couldn't, or at least from the outside it seems like they weren't able to make a Left 4 Dead 3, which again would have been very obvious to do. Moving on, TechRaptor has this charming farming action RPG called Qatari Fables, release date being announced. Let's see, coming out September 3rd, 2021. Let's jump through here and see what this looks like.
The design fault lies with you.
Looks like it might be interesting. It kind of has some softness in the animation where it could be a little low polygon, but not terrible levels of low polygonness. We've certainly seen worse games that are obviously just mobile game animation levels. If we play this, can we do anything else? I think you do this first. We'll just let him do some damage to me. TechRaptor has an article, Video Games, the Therapeutic Benefits of Fictional Words. This was 520. See, I don't want to run into a scenario like Gamma Sutra where they would have a opinion piece like this or a feature piece like this, and they would repost it over and over again. Apparently this is either being done in conjunction through interviewing an actual doctor, a clinical depth psychologist, and video game researcher. Certainly video games have been used in therapy and will be used in therapy. Let's see. The researcher's name is Dr. Anthony Bean. The writer here is Dan Rockwood. I don't know if I recognize this guy. Let's see what other articles he's written. A guide. See, it seems like as TechRaptor is hiring more people, they are putting them to work on making guides first before they can really do anything else. Although it doesn't seem like opinion pieces are particularly stopped. He must have been doing stories for a while here. He's been since the new year writing for TechRaptor. So, yeah. And I don't find anything immediately, just on the face of it, objectionable from the idea of video games being used as therapy. I think that makes sense, and I think it can work for a lot of kids. I would argue there probably is more kids than you think that are in therapy that are also kind of not exposed to video games, so it might not be effective for them in particular. A lot of kids that would be neglected or abused probably also would not be given video games, although certainly a lot of kids that are neglected and abused also do have video games. And any therapy around something fictional has to be closely monitored so it doesn't just lead to complete and total escapism or break from realities. And I would also say that much like the accessibility controller not really being adapted perfectly to a lot of games, I imagine a lot of video games are not well adapted for the means of therapy, and therapy probably needs some custom-made games. That's something that a company like Microsoft in particular could pull off and say, hey, we're going to make a fund of $100 million to make specific games made by Microsoft specifically for therapy uses. Do you want to do that? I want to do this.
Guide you. It looks like I'm up.
There we go. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Focus Home Interactive raises 70 million, I suppose that's euros, or approximately 85 million US dollars to accelerate development.
I'll get production up and running.
Let's see, what is Focus Home Interactive working on these days, I wonder?
Quicksilver barrier.
Well, I know Focus Home Interactive is working on something, but man, I hate to have to do more research, but let's do it. This is really where a lot of these websites could be very helpful. Let's see. Come on, latest games. The latest games, I think we even looked at these. Hood and Outlaws, Hired Gun, SnowRunner, Shipbreaker, Stormground, Shady Part of Me, Evil West, Curse of the Dead Gods, and Insurgency Sandstone. Yeah, it's no surprise I can't remember which games this company is working on when all of their games are a little too generic. They did the Plague and Innocence tale, I think, and they've done some. I'm just looking at the video now on the website. They've done some games that certainly have caught my eye in the past. What I would say is Focus Home Interactive doesn't have a consistent style to it, and it would probably be helpful if they had a logo or a brand that they popped up that was more interesting than just a few letters that say Focus Home Interactive. That way I could try and synchronize in my mind the games they've made. Gamma Sutra has the same story. Deep Silver reforms Time Splitters developer Free Radical with original founders. So this, I guess, is going to be a subsidiary of Deep Silver. So this is involving THQ Nordic. And Embracer Group and THQ Nordic obviously is just pushing a lot of people to go back to the old days, for better or worse, instead of moving forward. And making something new. They're just bringing back things they're nostalgic with. And I can't imagine that this isn't just going to eventually end with Embracer Group and THQ Nordic going bankrupt and being sold off again. Just because they're going to overextend themselves far too much. But maybe they've got different financials, and I know a lot of THQ's failure was a doubling down on Toys to Life decision. So maybe it was just one bad decision that wrecked the entire company.
This is not the end.
Well, that sucked. Let's try that again. Just can't do anything other than try and get Havencraft victories. Gamasutra has an article here. Valheim has sold 6.8 million copies since February to become a quote franchise, which basically means they are going to make more around the Valheim property.
A dazzling victory.
What's funny is I don't think
そんなに私に遊んでほしいの
I've
ですか
even looked at Valheim's Steam page. Which, well, apparently I have because I clicked on it. But yeah, it's early access right now, and that's why it's on the following list. Can you play this game in single player mode? Yes, you can. There might be an argument that Valheim is just a new Skyrim type game, and that it might just work fairly well as half Skyrim, half survival game, and half Witcher 3. Of course, if you're gonna make that your sales pitch that you should play Valheim because it's a newer version of Skyrim, there's definitely some logical flaws with that argument, particularly when the next Elder Scrolls game actually makes. Let's see. Gamasutra has an article. THQ's parent company Embracer held mergers and acquisition talks with over 150 companies during the last quarter, which that really doesn't mean much. You could be in talks and be nowhere close to being in agreement. You could be in talks and both sides could have no intention of ever agreeing. You could be in talks for years and years until you get to a point where you agree. But it definitely, I suppose, highlights the fact that there are clearly people whose day-to-day job, 40 hours a week, is talking to somebody about acquisitions, probably lawyers. Let's see.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Apple saw over 100 million in revenue from Fortnite's stint on the Apple Store. So, yeah, as long as the lawsuit doesn't end up costing Apple more than $100 million, which there's a decent chance it won't end up costing them much at all, I suppose they made bank. And arguably, they probably made way more than 100 million because they brought more people to the platform. Alright, well this is how I have the Gematsu pages set right now. I'm not sure I particularly like them this way. Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Town, tops 200,000 in North America and becomes Exceed's fastest selling title. Yeah, I think trying to get the videos, when there is a video on Gamasutra, to fit in the middle of the screen is not worth the mess of doing this. So just feel like that looks way better generally. And what I probably could do is if I could just find a way to shrink the top resolutions a little bit of the top bar. Maybe I could get a little bit more pixels out of Chrome. And all I need is maybe 20 pixels.
May the gems guide you.
Didn't play fast enough there. Yeah,
Cast aside your tools.
that's gonna be my next project. Side project, I suppose, is to see if I can get a few more pixels. Auto hide the top bar with all the buttons.
And that
That
concludes today's
that would be fine. Or I auto hide the tabs even. That'd be fine. If I could collapse them, that would be really nice. Alright, let's keep playing. I'm losing momentum here.
are the best medicine.
Gamatsu has an article, Sword of Legends online PvP trailer, gameplay, and screenshots are available. I think we've seen either games like this or games in general. Yeah. Ideally, what I need to do is just stop using the higher dots per inch resolution. But I don't know how to adjust for that in most cases. Yep. That game doesn't look particularly interesting. Yep. That's the next big project, I suppose. Next time I do anything with my computers, is just gonna say leave everything at 100% dots per inch and figure out a way to read the screen from 10 feet away. Like, if I just have to physically have binoculars, maybe that's the real solution to it. Gamatsu also has the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart Planet and Exploration trailer, which I would kind of like to see the more open world sections of Ratchet & Clank, because there was a lot of sequences that have you jumping from world to world in what I think are just in-game cutscenes, where I'm still not 100% certain I believe there is much more than a linear experience. I guess it also probably doesn't matter to me if it's only coming out on the PlayStation 5. So that is also gonna make my decision easy on that. Gamatsu has Magic Legends Open Beta update, adding the Pyromancer Cleanser and Story Act 4, which we'll see about that.
No escape from the apocalypse to come.
Yeah, I really would have to question why I would want to play a game like this that's just kind of like a MOBA based around the Dungeons and Dragons / Magic the Gathering universe. Yeah, I'd have to actually like that universe more than I actually do. What can we do? Play this? Nope.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Stay safe, my son.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
Let's see, do we want to evolve anything?
No, The smiles are not free.
See. Devolver Digital and Team Wibby, W-I-B-Y, announced an asynchronous multiplayer game called Phantom Abyss for PC. And yeah, we don't really need to watch the trailer if it already has a Steam page, so let's just click the Steam page and go there.
What was that?
So, it's procedurally generated temples, and you're retrieving sacred relics, and I guess what they mean by asynchronous multiplayer is that you're watching ghosts of other characters die, which ghosts in general, I don't think you typically would describe as just asynchronous multiplayer, unless the other characters are activating and changing how the traps activate. And that's the real question, is does it change how the traps activate? Thus, the lucky person who manages to set off all the traps the least wins, because everybody who went earlier and set off the traps have already triggered them. Which, yeah, that could mean that the last person almost always wins. It's coming out June 2021. Might be something there, it might not. It might be a smart way to turn the concept of a something like Mirror's Edge and the parkour in Mirror's Edge into something that is more video gamey and more multiplayer-y.
This is not the end.
And more procedurally generated. Next, we have a Gematsu article, Hot Wheels Unleashed college campus trailer and screenshots. Which, okay. There is always going to be a decent argument to playing a Hot Wheels game as a racing game, particularly if it comes to PC. The real question, though, is will it run smoothly and well, because I don't think Hot Wheels games have been particularly known for that. Right now it's apparently coming to the PC, PS4 and 5, Switch, and Xbox One and Series. Let's go ahead and try a different Havencraft deck since we're not winning with the tournament one. Let's see. Gematsu has a Virtua Fighter and X esports official announcement live stream set for May 27th. Which, okay. Some new Virtua Fighter type experience. Gematsu has a live stream for Escape from Hotel Izanami coming to PC on June 10th. It was first released on the Switch in April. See if we can look at the Steam listing here. An action, adventure, survival horror game. Yeah, I think we've looked at this before and I was just waiting for it to actually come out. That or I wasn't particularly interested in it, which might also be the case. We shall see, I suppose, eventually. Let's see. No Man's Sky Beachhead Expedition adds Normandy SR1 from Mass Effect series. That's an interesting crossover. Players have until May 31st to get it, so obviously I'm not going to get it, because I'm not going to play Mass Effect probably ever. Yeah, that's a Gematsu article, in case you're wondering. Always want to attribute. Gematsu has Dragon Ball Z Kakarot DLC Trunks the Warrior of Hope screenshot. So this is not Dragon Ball Z Fighters. And it's still very weird that there's two very viable Dragon Ball Z games right now, and you have to kind of pick and choose. Do you want more of a fighting game, or do you want more of a RPG game with a fighting element? In all honesty, they're both fighting games, but first and foremost. But I would say Dragon Ball FighterZ is still probably the better pick.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Gamatsu has World War II coming to PC on July 16th.
Today
See if
we'll
we can
lift some heavy scriptures.
see what this looks like. Looks like a kind of pixely side-scrolling walk-around game. I don't know if you're collecting DNA of animals or what. Collect resources, solve puzzles, restore life. Tale of creating life on a planet on the verge of extinction. There we go.
Back straight, eyes forward.
And turn.
A fair a day keeps the doctor
And that
away.
concludes today's sermon.
E3 has an article here. E3 2021 joins forces with major video and social media distribution services to broadcast globally, which,
Put your legs into
let's see,
each prayer.
Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Gaming, TikTok, Vine, never heard of it, Steam, Reddit, Entertainment Weekly, Webedia, WeChat, that's, I think, Japanese, Bilibili, which I think is Chinese, Africa TV was obviously Africa. So lots of places to see E3, certainly. I've also cleaned up the E3 Expo website to mostly not have garbage floating around. That way it's nice and clean to show off. That was one other side project, which I'm kind of constantly having too many side projects. See, TechRaptor has the same story. Valheim drives strong financial year for Embracer Group. Which, okay. Is this Valheim with the motorcycles? No, this is Ride to Hell. A pretty bad game. I don't know why TechRaptor would bother to mention that. That seems unnecessary. TechRaptor has an article here. Xbox secret Easter egg revealed after nearly 20 years. Shows off a created screen that up to this point is completely unknown. It was revealed by a developer who wanted to remain anonymous but still wanted to show off the Easter egg hidden in the Xbox dashboard. So you have to go to music and then start a CD, choose copy twice, and then new soundtrack, delete the soundtrack title and write in with no quotes Timmy, which is 26 Ys, and when the disc is ripped, go to settings and then go to system info. There should be now a credit screen listing the members of the Xbox dashboard team. That seems crazy. And this is the original Xbox thing, so seems kind of like not a big thing to do, certainly. Boy, is it a blast from the past looking at this. I never even played with the Xbox, and I can tell this is old. And this certainly shows an example of just why weren't these people just credited in the first place. I would hope modern standards now allow for people to be properly credited.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
Like having to hide that as an Easter egg is something that the likes of Atari made people do because they didn't want anybody to get any credits at all. Frankly, everybody should get credit for everything. Everybody gets the blame for everything in most jobs. You might as well get the credit too. And almost certainly there are people on the credits of some games they hated their experience on that game and potentially only work there for a week or two. But I imagine those people aren't the same people playing the game seeing the credits anyway, so it probably doesn't matter.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Snapchat games have reached over 200 million users in 2 years, which I'm surprised by that. I would have thought Snapchat games didn't even exist until someone just said it did. Gamasutra has an article. There's a report that Netflix wants to hire a video game exec to create an Apple Arcade style service. That makes a lot of sense, although I don't know why they want to make it separate considering Netflix has already made a couple of video games inside their own app. Maybe they've realized that a video streaming app is not the same as a video game app and they need to separate it out just for content reasons, let alone for programming reasons. But they made that interactive video Bandersnatch for Black Mirror. They ported Minecraft Story Mode, and they Stranger Things 3, the video game, I don't believe was actually on Netflix. So, yeah. There is definitely a possibility that succeeds better because you could easily see a scenario where Netflix is just a little bit more way more hands-off than Apple would be, and that might just have an appeal to a lot of game developers. Let's see. Xbox games that are coming soon to Games Pass have been announced. Peggle 2, several other games. Conan Exiles. I don't think Conan Exiles is really out. Is finished. Slime Rancher. I would like to get to a point where I cover the games I actually want to cover before they make it to things like Game Pass. But I would have to make a lot more content and hurry up to do that. This game, Wild at Heart, also catches my eyes. Some of these probably also would catch my eyes. I may at some point play Conan Exiles if it ever has a final version of itself. Knockout City might. I think that's mostly a multiplayer game though. Let's see, am I just scrolling down through ads? I think I am at that point. Okay. Let's go ahead and end that turn. Guess we'll have to cover some games because we're not at the end here. I kind of curated some of the games too today. Like, I skipped over some that just look like garbage. Like, I probably should do more of that in general. I'm still waffling between curation and not curation.
Shall give birth to a new world.
Okay. If we attack this,
Thus, the world ends.
and then
This is where I truly shine. Feel free to call me again.
then
You're in good hands.
see if this works.
Music to your ears, am I right?
Nope, that didn't work. Alright, well. We may be able to win here. Here we have a game called Forgotten Forest, The Eye of the Great One, which looks like it's kind of just a walking
Way!
simulator with real
Look to the zenith. For there, I will
real
rise.
images. It doesn't look visually polished enough. It kind of looks like an attempt at something. But if this was a really, really old game and not brand new, I might even consider it. But $19.99 English full audio, that's too much. Yeah, that's asking a lot for something that does not look anywhere polished. If I do this,
Look to the zenith. For there, I will
then I
rise.
do
There is not a
this,
soul without sin.
and then I evolve here.
My blade is your salvation.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
Can I do anything else? Nope.
No!
But I should be able to win. If I'm lucky. Next we have Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remake,
There is not a soul
which this is
without
an old
sin.
game being remade.
Let us conclude.
Without playing the first two Shin Megami Tensei, I don't think I can ever
Spare the
play
innocent
this
by your
game.
will, O Lord.
But I will put it on the fall list. I need to make that decision as far as could we get to that point. It's already on the fall list. And yeah, I just got wrecked again. Sure is easier to beat the AI than it is to beat people. For what is probably a fairly old game, this doesn't look terrible, but it also doesn't look particularly appealing. It would make a lot more sense since one of the endings of like this game or one of the Shin Megami Tensei games leads to
This one's
the
for my family.
events of the Persona games. It would make a lot more sense to just play the Persona games, or play a completely different RPG series that's just a bit newer. I don't think the Shin Megami series really falls in the top 5 of JRPGs you have to play. Here we have a game on Steam that's some Asian letters and it's just called Lover. It looks to me like it's probably a simplistic visual novel. My guess would be Chinese. Doesn't look particularly bad in the screenshots it is showing. It just doesn't look like there's going to be much here. English is not supported, 629, Chinese only. Okay. Well, that makes the decision fairly easy. TechRaptor has an article here. The Disney Classics game Jungle Book expansion pack has been leaked on Steam database. Disney Classic Games already has Aladdin and the Lion King, but it looks like Jungle Book expansion pack is about to be added as purchasable DLC. So yeah, we may just see more of these old Disney games that were abandoned a long time ago getting ported and running through some emulator, I'm sure. There is something nice to be said about having these games on Steam, where you know a copy is saved in the cloud for you. In a lot of ways, that is what Steam is to me. It's not just a storefront to buy games. It is a free for your life, or at least the life of Steam existing, which is probably my life. It is a free cloud service to back up every single game install disk and install file I ever would need. And when you have 2,000 or 3,000 games, that probably, if I was to try and install them all, would be a few terabytes, maybe. I could see it being 50, 60 terabytes, more, maybe even 100 terabytes of games. A lot of games are small and old, certainly, but and 50 or 60 terabytes of online service is not going to be free, certainly in any other scenario. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. A prominent Mass Effect mod creator has pulled his mod over infringement concerns. Giftfish, one of the more prominent mod creators from the original Mass Effect games, has pulled all of their mods from Nexus Mod. The reason they're doing this is to avoid other creators freely remaking those mods for those newly released Legendary Editions. Which, was he selling the mods? And I think you've already let the barn out the door, like the horse out of the barn, is how that saying goes. Like, these mods clearly would have been downloaded by people already. So, if the concern is that people you want people not to have access to your mods that you let people have access to, it's too late for that, obviously. See if I can understand his thinking better than this. See, Gridfish said that she spoke to mods, the moderators at Nexus Mods. They should have definitely wrote moderators there about their concerns over mod ports. Mass Effect modders can't port their mods like Skyrim modders could due to the special edition, and they have to remake the mods with the Legendary Edition files. However, Giftfish says that Nexus considers remaking a mod idea-based and not something restricted to the original mod's creators, so cases of mod infringement would always be needed to be handled by a case-by-case mod basis. So really, this is a issue with Grifffish not happy with the way Nexus Mod runs their site, more than an actual legitimate attempt to stop people from being able to port their mod, port a mod they didn't create, because that almost certainly would happen. And yeah, if you really were going to be concerned about that, you shouldn't have made a mod in the first place. There's really nothing else to say in that. If you had original IP, you would own the copyright on it. You could then hire lawyers to protect the copyright and see how far you can get with that. But if you are starting with somebody else's intellectual property and making a mod for it, then you're already in the gray area, and your rights to mod someone else's game is exactly the same, if not lesser, than someone else's rights to mod your mod or port your mod. Legally speaking, it would be the exact same thing either way.
I'm already a proper lady, you know.
Best of luck to you.
Let's see. That really feels like that's one of those cases where success has changed a person, or time has changed a person's opinion on what they were doing. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Killer Motive, which seems to be a kind of escape the house, find the murderer
Your hypersonic
mystery
gal is here.
game. Doesn't look like much. It's $1.79. It's Chinese only. Not terrible for a Chinese game though. Like they are, I think, rapidly getting better when they are getting better. And increasingly fewer and fewer of the bad games seem to be getting made.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Never fear. Your hypersonic gal is here. You're in good hands.
Let's go and
Is
just
that how you
hit
treat a
that.
lady?
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Ink Paper Minesweeper, which, yeah, I don't think there's any reason why I'd want to play Minesweeper that looked this way. That seems very ugly. Free to play, English only. Here we have a game called Heidelberg 1693, which looks like it is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game. Zombies.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs. Designs are
Doesn't
like
look
unhatched
terrible.
dragon eggs.
Maybe a little ugly. Seems like you're spending a lot of your time actually using sword fighting because you have to actually reload your gun if you don't use the sword. $14.99, English full audio. I'll put this on the follow list. We'll see if people like it. I wouldn't be surprised though if it's just a little too obscure of an idea of a game anyway, so it just doesn't appeal to anybody because of its setting. Okay. Do this.
Blueprints.
Thus the world begins.
Hit that. That.
Is that how you treat a lady?
And hit that. And then end the turn. Next we have Hagia Sophia VR experience. I believe it's literally the holy mosque of Hagia Sophia the Grand, and formerly the church of Hagia Sophia. Yeah, this is a big church. I believe there's also a Little Sophia church somewhere, if I'm calling correctly. It looks like it's mostly now ordained, a lot like an ancient Catholic church, but there also are some frescoes and things that seem to be more Middle Eastern. I wouldn't be surprised if there was several different religions that took over the church and then redecorated. Yeah, there might be some history there. This is $8.99 and single player VR. I'll put that on the follow list, see if people like it. Says it was designed by Greek geometers Isidore of Miletus and Artemitheus of Tralles.
So long
If you recognize those names, well, I don't know why anybody would. Architecturals history fans probably recognize those names. Well, it's been quite the struggle to get to one victory. If we can get 2 more, we'll get most of these done. Enough to feel satisfied at least. Next we have a game here that's all Asian characters. Looks like it's a card game. Doesn't look particularly interesting. $4.49, Chinese only. Easy enough to dismiss. Here we have something that's written in Russian, so I have no way to pronounce that.
A dazzling
It's
victory
tagged as a
awaits.
tower defense
Bow
game,
before Dark
real-time
Dragoon,
strategy.
ruler of the skies.
Doesn't really look like a tower defense game to me, but also doesn't look interesting. $5.99 Russian only. We're having a interesting amount of games today that are not English. Whereas a lot of games, almost all games, support English or at least claim to support English as a secondary language on Steam. So maybe we're getting more international fandom, or maybe it's just a weird fluke. Next we have a game on Steam called Blackout, which looks like it's probably a low effort horror game. Looks visually polished fairly well, but in the actual video it seems like your enemy is these laughable dolls. And half of this 57-second trailer is blackness. See, they've got nothing to show. You've got a logo at the beginning, cutting up 6 seconds to then zoom to this point and see that. And then it goes back to black text. Yeah, there's nothing here. This is $1.79 English only. Yeah, there's no quality to that. Next we have a game just called Underwater, which usually underwater games are not interesting, and this doesn't look interesting. Apparently it's a side scroller, 59 cents English only. Feels like maybe it's trying to be educational, but not really. Here we have a game called Album Corvus. Dark fantasy dungeon crawler roguelike. I almost assume that this is a card game that just is always playing heavy metal in the background. And there's just not enough polish to the interface though for what it's showing. There is something to the idea of having nicely animated cards next to each other and just card battles card, but then you have just your abilities down here that pop up over the card, and then you have effects triggering on the sides telling you what's going on, and then probably fairly generic animations to show the attacks. $12.99 English only. Let's go and just end our turn. Let's see. Next we have a game called After Off War, which doesn't even make sense as a sentence. It looks like a asset flip first person shooter. Early access, English and Chinese, $9.89. Let's see, we have a game called Dangerous Too Sweet, which is tagged as a LGBTQ plus visual novel. Seems like there's 3 characters. Seems like one of them maybe is a cross-dresser, and that they're all guys otherwise. $1.99 English and Russian. I imagine there's not anything interesting there. Should I go ahead and play that? Should I do that? Should I play that? Can't play that, so. Let's go ahead and get rid of this then.
Well, on to the next project.
Let's see. Next we have a game called Dreams of Exile, which is also LGBTQ+. Looks to me like it's just an RPG maker type game. Nothing particularly interesting with that. $2.69, English only. Go ahead and play that.
The zenith. There, I will rise.
Next we have a game called Recursive Hate Spider Hell, which just looks like an asset flip game. Although the idea of shooting giant spiders, if you actually did well with that, might actually work fairly well. You have a whole bunch of different spiders as enemies. Of course, people with arachnophobia would never play a game. I don't know how many people have arachnophobia though. And honestly, I can't tell for certain that I wouldn't, after an hour or two of playing a game like this,
I will
get
rise again.
the get that feeling that a spider might be near me or crawling on me. Of course, it is not incredibly uncommon for some kind of insect or spider to actually be crawling around me. Doesn't matter how well or clean you keep your house, there's a decent chance that you're not 5 meters away from an insect in the walls.
Punish the wicked, spare the innocent.
Let's see.
Let judgment fall.
Finish the job.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game is just not polished enough for that idea.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And frankly, I wouldn't want to just fight spiders. I want to fight several different insects.
Personal.
This is $1.59 English full audio. Yeah, we have Mystery Trackers Nightville's Horrors Collector Edition for Big Fish Game. Obviously, it's a hidden object game. I bet it's cheap. It's actually only $8.99 when usually it's like $12.99 for Big Fish games. English only.
This is not the end.
Of course, I think there might be an argument against Big Fish games calling everything a collector's edition, but I can see why Valve doesn't want to get into that argument and tell them how to name their own games. As long as they're not being fairly deceptive about the labeling of their games, I think that's just going to be left to the open market. Here we have a game on Steam called 41 Hours, which is odd. You'd think it would be called 48 Hours, but whatever. And this probably is just an asset flip first-person shooter, but there is something certainly to the way this trailer and these transitions to these cutscenes look. It seems like there's some abilities and maybe something here. Of course, this just could be a really flashy trailer on a nothing game. It's $13.49 English full audio. It's also Russian and Chinese. It's probably not that good. It says it has 20 hours of gameplay and 11 chapters, but I'm going to put it on the follow list and see what people have to say. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Crystal Raiders VR, which looks like you're in
long as there
VR,
is light.
running around avoiding traps, fighting some enemies. Not really doing anything that interesting. Early access $14.99. Yeah, I just don't think there's enough polish on this game to make me want to play it. This art style looks weird and seems like you're kind of not doing anything consistent and you're just randomly goofing around. Got a free victory there because they conceded, which is probably about the only way I'm going to get any victories at this rate, but whatever, we need one more. Here we have Knockout City on Steam. It's already on my follow list. It's got third-party DRM, third-party EA account, third-party EULA, third-party subscription. It is cross-platform multiplayer only.
Victory awaits.
And that's
Activate. Enhance.
going to be the
Fire.
problem, certainly, is that since this is a multiplayer, my mileage would vary drastically by the time I bought the game and played the game. It has no single-player content, so this needs to leave the follow list. For me, specifically as a video game critic, I just can't criticize multiplayer games. I don't know how to do it. When one person is going to jump in a game and get like a horrible experience, and some people are going to jump into a game and have a great experience. This next game is tagged nudity and sexual content, so let's see if any of it actually shows. No. Here we have a game called Dungeon Girl. This is one of these try to look like it has interesting adult content style games that really obviously doesn't have anything that interesting. It looks like what you're really doing is just pushing block puzzles, maybe kicking, maybe you have to design the level and the dungeon themselves. It's $4.99, English and Chinese. Yep. There's definitely not anything impressive with the pre-made models in it. Let's see, I'll watch the video just to see what the video has to show. Yeah, there's nothing here. Basically looks like a just direct ripoff of the Cinderella game that came out a couple of years ago, which, yeah. Yep. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how in more restrictive countries like India and China, for instance, back a long time ago, I don't think it's really the case these days, they would make fake medical movies with nudity in them and present what it was effectively porn as a doctor giving a medical presentation, since that was the only way you could see that kind of thing before the internet existed. Of course, that would not really make sense these days. Even in China, I imagine there are easier ways to get porn and make a terrible video game.
Is that how you treat a lady? What? Impossible!
Let's move on. Next we have Shiba Inu Rescue on Steam. Looks like it's probably a mobile game that's been stretched out, and it doesn't look like it's much of a game anyways. Seems like you just run and jump on skunks, which that's a great way to get attacked by a skunk. Yeah. There's just nothing here. $4.99, third-party EULA, English only.
It looks like I'm up.
this?
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Shackled, which looks like nothing. Yeah. $11.99, English only. Next, we have a game called Blue Devil and the Belvedere, which is tagged as a shoot 'em up game. Yep, it looks like one of the anime girl shoot 'em up games. $9.99, English, Chinese, and Japanese. Yep. There's too many of those for me to actually consider playing any of them.
Trouble now.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Perspective, which looks like nothing of interest. Free, English only. I guess the price is right. Let's see. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Whole Space. I assume that's how you pronounce it with the 2 dots above it. Whole Space 5D6, which it's very dark. A lot of dark screenshot syndrome here. I don't know if there's really a game here or not. I think I'm gonna have to just resolve to put this on the following list. It's early access, it's $9.09, which is an odd price. English, allegedly full audio, single player with a third-party EULA. I bet if I was to just have to pick, I'd probably say it's nothing. It's just a kind of slightly visually designed first-person shooter game.
The design fault lies with you.
Asset prototype first-person shooter game, but I'll risk it in favor of not making a mistake. I'll put it on the follow list.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures. A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
My blade is your salvation.
I don't know if
Put your
that
legs in
was
action.
necessary, but
Back straight, eyes forward.
let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Stack Defense, which looks like a VR game of some sort. Doesn't look particularly interesting. It's a game where you're stacking and somebody is shooting at you, I suppose. So it's like, it's an interesting thought to try to turn Tetris into a VR game. Let's see. $9.99, English full audio. Next, we have a game called Pixel Speedrun, which doesn't look interesting at all. $2.99, bunch of languages. Alright. Do we have to heal now, or should we heal later?
Look to the zenith. For there, I will
Back
rise.
straight, eyes forward.
Here we have a game on Steam called AI Battle Royale Generator, which looks like nothing. Early access $3.39. English, French, and Spanish. Right. Think we can skip games called betas. Toy Tinker Simulator Beta.
So I set, I will
This
rise
doesn't look
again.
like enough of a game either, anyways. The idea of being a toy builder or being able to modify toys might be an interesting idea, but yeah, I don't think we're. I don't think this company is gonna do it justice. And in a lot of ways, it seems like you're just gonna be decorating a house as much as doing anything else. Here we have a game on Steam called Nocht, N-O-C-H, Notch. Guess maybe it's pronounced Nosh. Looks like you might be fighting werewolves or something, and it's kind of a spooky environment. Early access, English and full audio, $7.79. I already have that on the following list, so we had already seen that, obviously. Alright, should I do that now? Or should I banish this character? Here we have a game on Steam called Godlike, which looks like nothing. 69 cents, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Project Elysium, which I feel like there was another Project Elysium at some point. That was not this game. This doesn't look interesting. $2.69, English, German, French. We may be getting some more European games. Which, honestly, we should be getting more European games. Here we have a game called Sayonara Golden Days. They're calling a point-and-click experimental game. It's saying it's a puzzle point-and-click experimental. You discover the reason why a college gaming club broke apart in this unfinished game made by its club members and relive the golden days that vaguely exist in our memories. That seems almost autobiographical. $1.99 Chinese full audio. Put this on the follow list, see if people like it. Seems like people might. Okay. Here.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
And then here. And then here. And then heal that.
A bear a day keeps the doctor away.
See. Next we have a game called Polyville Canyon, which is apparently a cartoony city builder with low polygons. I don't see a real reason why I'd want to play a low polygon city builder, although there is a certain visual appeal to that idea. The city building part is the part that irritates me, though. I don't feel like you would want to play this unless you were just new to city building. And this definitely feels like something that could have been a cell phone game first. $1.99 English only. Yeah, I just don't know if I could buy into this idea of this game is low polygon and low complexity. And like, because really what it's saying is we're giving you a like free play creative mode of a city builder with none of the benefits of playing a regular city builder as far as graphics or complexity. So yeah, I can't put that on the follow list. That's too lacking in content. Next we have The Wild at Heart, which is on my follow list already. I still feel like Knights and Bikes, I never got around to playing that. $24.99 is asking quite a lot though. Bunch of languages.
judgment will
That
rain
is
down upon
asking
you.
a lot for something like that. This game's gonna give people seizures with that trailer. Here we have a game just called -A-, which clearly is just an asset flip first-person shooter game with an anime girl. They want 59 cents for this garbage. It's English only. I don't know why Steam and Valve would let somebody just name their game -A-. That's too simplistic a name. And just seeing a name like that alone has to tell them that the game itself has not had any effort put into it. Next we have a game that's all on Asian characters. It looks like it's some kind of RPG game. It's mostly negative already. $7.19, Chinese only. So, you know, somebody's not happy with whatever it's offering. Here we have a game called Snout, S-N-O-U-T, which just looks like Snake clone. It's free, I guess the price is right, but then it has a third-party account for no reason. Here we have a game on Steam called Squad Killer, which just looks like a platforming old school game. $2.99, English only. Let's see. Here we have a game called Mess Cleanup, which seems to be you find two things in a mess of things. So it's kind of like a match 2/hidden object game, but immediately you start to see the problem where it starts to squish too many items together and you'd have to zoom in. And apparently there are bombs. 84 cents, English only. This might make an interesting kind of mini game inside of another kind of game. Like in the inside of a first-person shooter, I could certainly see the idea of.
It looks like I'm up. Did I not pray hard enough?
I did not play that well. Yeah, I could see having a pile of mess and having to find bullets or health kits in the mess and then having to run.
You're in good hands.
But as a standalone game, I don't think it quite works. TechRaptor has an article here. The newest Story of Seasons is Xseed's fastest selling game ever. Which, okay. I don't know how long Xseed has been selling games, nor do I think Xseed has been selling particularly popular games. TechRaptor has an article here. Red Dead Redemption 2 VR mod debuts in early access. Which I imagine streamers will play with that for a brief week or so. TechRaptor has an article. Besties mixes Monster Battles Match 3 and Farming. And it's coming out this year. Apparently for the Switch. Yeah, that seems like that's 3 very boring gameplay mechanics mixed together. Let's see. He destroyed all my things.
There is not a soul without sin.
My blade is your salvation.
Punish the wicked. Spare let judgment fall.
Hmm. See, TechRaptor has an article here. A new Elder Scrolls board game is in development, which I suppose that's questionable whether you really care about a board game set in the Elder Scrolls universe or not. That seems like, I feel like I definitely am coming from the perspective where I care about Skyrim and something like Skyrim way more than I care about continuing the Elder Scrolls story for what little there is around that. Seems to me like the Elder Scrolls series really just boils down to, in every game you will find an Elder Scroll and use it for something. Okay. Let's go and grab that. Gamasutra has a mobile dev. Jam City is going public through a merger at a valuation of 1.2 billion. Merging and going public at the same time is a weird way to confuse things. They made Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery. Wasn't that game awful? And Panda Pop. I feel like the Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery game had massive amounts of cooldown timers or in-app purchases to bypass cooldown timers.
Away with you, trespasser! I purge the earth by filling sinners with holes.
Let's see. Gamasutra has an article. The ByteDance CEO Zhang Yiming is going to step down later this year. I would have to see him to know if I think it's because he's old or if there's some other reason for it. There may be not particularly an apparent reason for it at all. Right. We can play this for Ward, or we could play 2 of these. Or we can do this. Basically kill that one and nothing else. I think we play this one for Ward.
I will rise.
Wings of light, show your might.
Embrace them in your fiery gay prominence.
If I hit this, he could use these 2 to kill me. Or he has to use that one. So I think that's the right
You
move.
are forgiven. Gunfire purges away sin. I will rise again. Lend me your power, Golden Step.
Let's see.
I devote my entire being to the
What was
cause.
that?
Gamasutra has an article here. How truth and fiction intertwine in Welcome to Elk's storytelling. And then there's a YouTube video here. Seems like it's not much in the animation department. It's being praised by Polygon, and it does look like it is potentially not a real game and more of a social statement. Come on, I just need one quick disconnect. See, Gamatsu has an article here. The Last of Us Part 2 PS5 enhancement update is now available. It now plays at 60 frames per second, which I doubt the frame rate being better drastically changes the larger issues with the story. Let's see. Gematsu has Outriders surpassing 3.5 million unique players in its first month. Which, okay. It's on track to be Square Enix's next major franchise, according to Gematsu. Or probably quoting somebody. Gematsu has a Pinocchio-inspired Souls-like action RPG called Lies of P announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Which, okay. Does Pinocchio... I've often wondered, frankly, around Pinocchio, is it a good base for any story? It's kind of a terrible base for any story. But I guess if you don't want just monsters or fantasy characters, having potentially having potentially a mechanical man. Let's see what he looks like. Well, that's probably just the maker of Pinocchio. This is like some kind of mechanical dragon puppet. Yeah, I think you're gonna very loosely base something on a puppet, and a puppet is more gonna be a robot these days than a marionette puppet or anything like that. Guess we can go look at the Steam page and see if there's... Let's go ahead and end this turn. We can look at these screenshots a little bit more on Steam. Yeah, there might be something interesting to that. Maybe, but I could also see it not playing well. Yeah, the story of Pinocchio just doesn't work. A lot of the Disney movie stories and the old stories don't work anyways, so that's why we're seeing more and more of Disney trying to take characters that are popular and reboot them in live action movies like the Cruella movie or the Maleficent movie. And before that, there was a Once Upon a Time TV series that went for quite a few seasons and was pretty good for what it was doing. But yeah, Pinocchio as a character is also kind of one of the worst characters because you either write him as a spoiled brat child, which is how he's written, or you write him as something completely different. Let's see. Gematsu has Project Game GAMM by Cygames, maker of Shadowverse, has its first screenshot and artwork. Okay. Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like it's going to be a collectible card game. Looks like it's going to be a JRPG game. And honestly, this might be the thing that kills Shadowverse. If it is a case that they cannot just support both products at the same time, we may very well here see Shadowverse getting neglected. But that's still a while away. Anyways, Gematsu has Game Builder Garage overview trailer. If you think I've probably already seen this, and if not, I don't need to get too hyped on a game I'm already kind of hyped on.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Let's see.
I'm so useless.
Gamatsu has the King of Fighters 15, Rolf Jones, and Clark Still trailer and screenshots. Couple more fighters for King of Fighters 15.
Destroy the world, artifacts.
Gamatsu has the Kimi wa Yukimi ni Koenigao debut trailer. This being a young maiden visual novel due out July 29th.
I was so lonely.
We really need to watch the trailer.
Quicksilver barrier.
Not really. Looks like it's one of those feudal Japanese romance stories. Let's see, we have Gamatsu has Alice in Country of Hearts.
Today's sermon.
What Wonderful White World launches September 2nd in Japan. Is 2 probably a otome visual novel based on Alice in Wonderland from the looks of it. Let's see if we can skip through the trailer. Yeah, all these trailers tend to really just show the characters. Yeah, this is a visual novel, right? Yep. Okay, if I played this, I'd get 4 back. Do I want to play 4 of it? No. Now you get 2 back, not 4 back, whatever. Then if I play this, it heals that. And then
A
that.
prayer a day keeps the doctor away.
There we go. I think that works well. Gametsu has an article. Ninjala downloads have topped 7 million. So people are playing Ninjala. Just not a lot of talk about them. 6 million was achieved in January.
Break them.
That being a player versus player game that
I'll destroy you all.
needs a lot of downloads, more players, because I think it's free to play to start with. Let's see. Gametsu has We See for Switch delayed to June 23rd. So,
Destroy you all.
what kind of game is this?
You all.
This is a kind of Metroidvania platforming game. Looks like it might be a little frustratingly challenging. Yeah, doesn't look like it's can be easily immediately dismissed.
Destroy you all.
Let's see. Ganbarion announces an adventure game called Ingawa Danshi to Kimono Ton for Switch, iOS, and Android. Let's see. What kind of game is this?
This is not the end.
Is this one of those games where you just talk to the person? Normally it's an anime girl you talk to, but here it seems like you hang out and talk to an anime farmer guy. Maybe it's got some more farming going with it too. It's not tagged as a visual novel. It's more interactive than that, but it might be fairly linear. I just got wrecked, by the way, in case all that sound effect didn't make that obvious. See, Gamatsu has a Falcon X Clouded Leopard Entertainment Asia live stream set for May 28th, which is going to include
A dazzling victory
a
awaits.
couple of games
Is
and maybe
fighting
some
and
other
despair
things.
all you know?
problem with these Haven Craft decks is that they're too one note. Obviously, I need some cards that are just good backup plans. Let's see. Gemetsu has an article, Dragon Star of Honor for Switch launches May 27th in Japan. Okay. This one is on Steam, so let's check it out on Steam and see what people have to say with it. It's on my wish list. It's very positive. Looks like a JRPG. Looks like it's probably not much otherwise. Yeah, it's just a Idea Factory Compile Heart JRPG. Some anime girls with lewd clothing, maybe, but probably nothing particularly explicit.
Guide you.
See, Gematsu has Shin Hariyagami 3 details its first 2 chapters, new characters and systems. Which, okay, this looks like a horror game. I was not expecting that. Certainly. Some kind of horror investigation game. Yep. Alright, well. It's due out for the PS4 and Switch on July 29th in Japan. I bet it does come to the West. It looks visually polished enough that that would make sense. Still just trying to get through tabs fairly slowly. Let's see, a Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin digital event are set for May 26th, according to Gematsu. They talk about these events, but then they break down whatever may have been said in the events, if anything important is said in the events, into their own articles. So it often feels like talking about the events itself is unimportant. And maybe it is unimportant. Let's see, Gematsu has Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin story trailer. Which,
There is not a soul without sin.
yep, this definitely looks different than the Monster Hunter games normally.
Punish
It's
the
much
wicked.
more
Spare the innocent.
Zelda Breath of the Wild, soft cell CG, high color depictions, where most Monster Hunter games are harsh, hyper realistic graphics, and they're coming with amiibos too. So they're not giving up on the amiibo concept. They're going kicking and screaming down that path, I suppose. Okay, do I want to hit that now? Let's say probably not. The Demon Slayer game is adding Tenjiro Kamado, which they are just slowly trickling out the announcements of the different characters in the Demon Slayer game. And that's always reporting on every single one of them. A game called Demon Gaze Extra teaser trailer and screenshots are now available. Let's see. I'm going to opt to not show that trailer just in case. Just in case. Although, for all YouTube's censorship, you would think I should feel fairly safe to show it, but I kinda don't.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Do I want to play something else? Yeah, I don't think I can really accomplish much, so let's just do this. Well, that trailer was kind of nothing, so I guess I can show it. It seems to show some characters and not really show how the game actually plays. I kind of assume it's going to just be a dungeon crawler.
That concludes today's sermon.
And then, yeah, some revelation here of angels, fallen angels. It's tagged as an RPG. Let's see. Could do this. Don't need to do that. Could do this. Guess we'll do that. And then do that. Gemetsu has one Justice, 2 DLC characters, Gentle Criminal and La Brava, being announced. Which, apparently this game is on Steam. Is it on my follow list? No. Why would I have rejected playing One Justice? Or My Hero Academia One's Justice? Single player, $60 plus a season pass. I think this definitely deserves to be on the fall list. Now I could see maybe never getting it because in part because I've just never played Dragon Ball FighterZ and I already bought that, and I don't want to end up buying a whole bunch of anime-based fighting games until there's some real reason to do that. My Hero Academia is still, last I heard, very popular. I must have just overlooked it. Here, Gematsu has an article, Katari Fables launches September 3rd. I think we had already seen someone else talk about that, so I think we're good there. And there.
It looks like I'm up. No!
And let's go ahead and play that.
A fair
I
advantage
guess.
keeps the doctor away.
Go ahead and play that. Yes. Gemetsu has the Famitsu sales from 510 to 516. So Resident Evil Village topping the charts next to Monster Hunter Rise. What's surprising here is that just goes to show how good Resident Evil Village must be to put it at the top of the charts for the PS4, where everybody else is playing every single game on the Switch for the top 10 list, and then 12 is the PS5 version of Resident Evil Village, and then Nier Replicant is down to 16. Particularly in Japan, though, the first week sales seem to be particularly high and heavily focused around new launches. And I suspect that's probably true for the West also. heal
A
that.
prayer a day keeps the doctor away.
And why did that not do damage?
You're in good hands.
See. Oh, that didn't work. I just wasted that card.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Here's that trailer I talked about, Back for Blood meets the Cleaners. Gemetsu has it, although you have to watch it on YouTube. I was interested certainly in watching the trailer to see if they had about the same enemies as Left 4 Dead did. Particularly the witch stands out in my mind. And pretty much they kind of do. They have a character called the Snitch instead of the witch, and it's basically the same thing. So yeah, I think all the favorites are coming back. I don't know if they're going to directly claim that Back 4 Blood has a director AI program like Left 4 Dead did that randomizes and changes the events. Like it'll have something like that almost certainly, but I don't think they're going to make as big of a deal about it because lots of games have that. Gemetsu has an article here, a Rogue Lords Disciples trailer. Apparently there's a game called Rogue Lords for the PS4, PC, Switch, and Xbox One. Don't recognize this game if it's been out before. It looks like a interesting art style, macabre art style. Also kind of just looks like a RPG game. One of these boring RPG games that may not have any real content or real reason why you'd want to play it. Yeah, on Steam. It is ready to be announced. I want you to wishlist it, which I think I'll just say no to that. Okay. Let's do this. And evolve this, I guess.
My blade is your salvation.
Though I set, I will rise again.
That didn't show me.
Cycles on.
Let's see. Gemetsu has Edge of Eternity 8-minute gameplay walkthrough, PC version due out June 8th. Let's see what this game actually looks like.
This is where I truly shine. It looks like I'm
They still have that problem where they give this very Final Fantasy like thumbnail to games, and then the actual game is more hyper realistic or just looks completely different. This actually looks very interesting as an RPG, so I don't know why they are going with the flat 2D perspective. There's probably a lot of grinding just like any RPG, but there might also be some systems here. Of course there's a lot of JRPGs and RPGs in general, so that there is a question always as to why this game versus others. And there's a question as to, will we ever be finished? Yeah, here's it on Steam in early access, and we can see it's very positive. And it's single player only.
A dazzling victory awaits. You must die.
Looks like might be fine. But you do also run into the problem of why play that game instead of Final Fantasy, any Final Fantasy, but particularly like Final Fantasy 13 or Final Fantasy 7, because those are all games I haven't played before. Gamatsu has an article here. The Last Spell launches in early access on June 3rd. Do we have a trailer to see what kind of game this is? Looks like it's a placement strategy game, kind of XCOM game. It would be a hard sell to convince me to play a game like this. Yeah, and so far I've not really run into any major issues with my network. I think I may have finally fixed it. Yeah, I say that too soon. I need to give it a whole week minimum to see what happens. And there is still some buffering elements that I would like to see improved, because when I do watch YouTube videos in particular, there's occasional slowdowns and loads. Gamatsu has a game called Foreclosed launching August 12, a cyberpunk action shooter. Let's see. Let's go over to its Steam page so we can watch the video. Notice how Steam doesn't give you any trouble watching these videos. Yeah, there might be something to this, or it might be nothing. It's probably silly to put it on the follow list, but I'll do it anyways.
It looks like I'm up.
On to attack!
See, Gamatsu has Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom Princess Edition coming to the Switch on September 17th. It includes both the post-launch downloadable content packs, which honestly, having DLC on games that were destined to end up on the Switch is probably not a smart move in the first place. One damage versus healing. Guess I just want to do this.
Is that how you
Get
treat
that.
a lady?
And then heal that. Gamatsu has an article. Muta Zion is coming to Xbox One and Switch on May 26th. Physical editions have been announced for the PS4 and Switch. Seems like it was released on Steam in September of 2019. So we'll look at it there. It is on my wish list. So I've already considered it. Yeah, it looks like it's a kind of point and click adventure game. It probably doesn't have that much gameplay and probably has a decent story. A mutant soap opera where small town gossip meets supernatural. That is an interesting way to describe a story.
What you need is a nice roaring flame.
Gamatsu has an article here. Access Games and Rare Breeds are Rare Breed makes games. That's all the name of the company. announced a 2D fighting game called Blazing Strike for the PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC, due out in spring of 2022. Yeah, and 2D fighting games, I guess, still need to exist. Yeah, I guess there's still enough reason to make a couple of those every now and then. Let's see. Let's see. Do I want to kill something? Do I want to do 3 damage to something? Do I want to draw 2 cards? I think I want to draw 2 cards. And we can do that. And we can do that. Let's see. Gamatsu has the Shadow Warrior 3 weapons trailer. If you want to check that out, I'll go ahead and skip that because I probably will play the Shadow Warrior series at some point, but the weapons aren't going to particularly interest me. Gamatsu has Biomutant for the PS5 and Xbox Series gameplay videos. I don't think that this is out until May 25th. And really don't know a lot about Biomutant as far as what the game actually is. Seems like it's wandering around 3D environments and taking on a bunch of different animals. Might be something here. It looks like it's a lot kung fu and kind of comic booky in its fighting style. Okay. It doesn't particularly sell me on Biomutant, nor does it steer me away from it. If I can do this, can I do this? No. If I do this, can I do this? Yes.
You belong now.
It looks like I'm up.
Gamatsu has an article here. 2D pixel graphics adventure game called Moon Semi has been announced for the Switch and PC.
It all ends here.
Let's see what this looks like.
Sorry, but the time for games is over.
Actually, it's only so far been delays on my cell phone as far as loads on YouTube videos. But also on my cell phone, I'm usually playing the videos twice as fast, whereas the videos playing on my PC are hardwired, so I have a faster connection anyways, and not playing it twice as fast. Like, assuming everything works the way it says it does, I should be getting 100 megabits up and down to my router, whereas the Wi-Fi connection, depending on whether I'm on the 5G or the 2G, 2.4G, 2.4 gigahertz or the 5 gigahertz, let me say that correctly, depending on those factors changes everything, and I'm actually usually on the 2.4 gigahertz, which only gives me about 60 megabits, maybe up and down at the same time.
Look to the zenith. For there, I will rise.
Let's see. Do I want to evolve here? Okay, we got some more games we need to burn through. Here we have a game on Steam called Atlantica Europe, which looks like nothing. A lot of trailers. Let's Some nice screenshots, but then a lot of it looks like garbage too. Free to play, single player MMO with in-app purchases. Bunch of languages, allegedly English full audio. Get rid of that. Next we have a game on Steam called Trap Town, which looks like nothing. Early access for $2.99, English and several other languages.
What was that?
Here we have a game called If It Please the Court, which obviously is a text-based visual novel, for lack of a better term. Although it's really just a novel. $3.99, interactive fiction. Guess what they might be calling it. We hit that.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Got your message loud and clear.
May the gems guide you.
See, if I had gotten that earlier, could I have played something different and helped me? See, Gamma Sutra has a job listing for a senior gameplay engineer for Treyarch Studios in Santa Monica or Vancouver, British Columbia. Santa Monica, California. We have a game on Steam here called Lacuna, a sci-fi noir adventure. It's already on the fall list. There might be something to it, although it looks very pixely. $13.59, bunch of languages.
This is not the end.
See if we're running into the same things. This is interesting. Samaroost 1 has finally been released on Steam. Maybe it was on Steam before, but I've been, I think, waiting potentially to play Samaroost 3, which I believe I own. And now here Samaroost 2 is on the wish list. And now I can go back and say, hey, let's buy the first game and just play. It's also free, so that's easier said than done. Just press the add to just click the button. Alright. Let's see. Come over here. Try again. That's this. Do this. Click that. Reload the page. It's already in my library. So yeah, just as easy as that, it's now in my library.
A dazzling victory awaits.
I guess you're looking for a fight.
Bunch of language support. It's a kind of weird point and click adventure game. So now I'm just looking, I guess, to get Samaroost 2, and then I could play the whole series. Probably play the whole series fairly in one go in a couple days. Let's see. There was a Psychonauts 2 video here on YouTube. We could turn off the subtitles, I suppose, if we wanted to. We'll skip around. They're showing off some things. Yeah, this is something certainly that I was thinking Psychonauts, if it was ever remade, needs to do, is that it definitely depicts things, mental health conditions, and depicts them kind of in a lighthearted or even comical manner. But I'd say Psychonauts 1 kind of fails to even be funny. And see, all this video is doing is showing several accessibility options, particularly, I think, focused around the mental aspects of it. And I'm glad they're doing that because otherwise they would get yelled at. Although Psychonauts 2 I still think has a very uphill battle to potentially get to be successful enough to make Microsoft happy. TechRaptor has an article here. 2020 was a great year for Dungeons and Dragons. Sure, I guess that would make a lot of sense. I'm surprised that they are saying that 40% of the people are female. So what's the 24% are between the ages of 20 and 24. 18% are between 25 and 29. 12% are between 15 and 19. Apparently nobody below 15 plays Dungeons and Dragons, which might be believable. 30 to 34-year-olds are another 18%, so you've got a big wedge here of fairly older players, and 35 to 39, it is kind of over half of the player base is still aging out as far as who is playing Dungeons and Dragons. How successful or happy the Dungeons and Dragons players are is another metric certainly you would want to try and measure. Let's see. So here's some screenshots of Psychonauts 2, and they look like they're bigger areas, more visually polished areas. I think a lot of it is still going to be in fairly small sections. Psychonauts 1 really takes place in just one overall camp and then one side area that they don't even bother to give a map to. Then you have several characters here, and it definitely feels like the characters and the kids at the camp have been aged a little bit. Also, it seems like they've added some characters that would have just been slightly older anyways. It was kind of weird that all the kids were about the same age at this camp in the first game. And it seems like fighting-wise, you still will be using your telekinetic hand, but I'm hoping that it's a better fighting system with more enemies and more entertainment when you are fighting people. Part of the major grind of Psychonauts 1 that I'm running into is it's just not fun to fight enemies when they show up, and it's not fun to wander around the level when there are no enemies and nothing to do. Let's see. Here's another shot of him using his psychic hand.
Your defeat was foretold.
And yeah. There's a section in Psychonauts 1 that I'm at right now where it looks somewhat like this, and the visual style changes drastically, which that would make sense if the visual style had changed drastically in all the previous levels, but it really hadn't. So it kind of stands out as a last minute change to the status quo. But since it is a game where you jump into the minds of multiple people having different kinds of minds, makes sense. Here are the censor characters that are the bad guys you fight a lot of.
Every shade imaginable.
There's a maternity ward here, which implies to me that somebody here is contemplating having a kid.
So many crystals.
And yeah, once again you have some more characters. Since Psychonauts 1 was a 3D platformer first, I wonder if Psychonauts 2 is not really going to have much platforming at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it is very linear. You just go from point A to point B, and that I wouldn't be surprised if that actually helps it a lot. I feel like the publisher Majesco demanded that it have like 1,000 collectibles and demanded in its contract. Demanded may be the wrong phrase. Maybe they contractually obliged Double Fine to make sure it had 1,000 collectibles and things like that.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
Okay.
Back straight, eyes forward.
Yeah, so those are the screenshots. So we should be close to being done. Here we have a game on Steam called Mind Scanners, which is tagged as a dystopian game with multiple endings. Kind of looks like Papers, Please. $15.29 is a little large amount of money to ask for. A bunch of languages. I guess I'll put this on the following list though. Seems like it's very positive. And then we have a game called Grand Casino Tycoon, which would I want to run a casino as kind of like a city management game? That actually sounds interesting. The graphics here don't look great, but there might be something to that idea. $19.99. English and German full audio. Well, several other languages. It would also seemingly, one would assume, be way easier to make money running a casino than it would running a city. So yeah, I'll put that on the fall list. Okay. And then finally we'll end here. I've got a game called Aimbot. That, well, actually we won't end here. We'll end at the end of this game. Obviously anything called Aimbot's not going to make it to the fall list. This is $5.59, English only. We'll end with this game, that way I'll know for certain I'll have some backup stuff going on. We'll make some progress hopefully next week
Eyes forward. No.
with the fall list coming up. Here we have a game on Steam called A Bird in Cage, where it seems like this girl is getting roughed up and she's now getting pushed around and manhandled and assaulted. Seems like she's getting manhandled a lot. So abusive boyfriend or abusive person, maybe not boyfriend. I don't know why I immediately assume it's a boyfriend. Could just be an abusive person. It's music based. Interesting. Of Bird in Cage is a unique metal album presented through a 2-hour-long story-driven game. Play music through a brand new way, featuring famous artists like Ron Bumblefoot Thal of X Guns N' Roses, Rob Vanderloo, Epica, and Rud Jolie of Within Temptation. It's an interesting idea. We've seen a couple other games based on music. English full audio. Yeah, I'll put this on the follow list. Now, how do I play this game on YouTube without it getting content ID? No clue. That is certainly going to be a concern. But I figure we could try it. I could at least give it a I don't know, it might be a good candidate for an experimental muted gameplay stream recording, which I could do that now. I could totally have the game run the audio into my ears and then just talk over it while no audio actually plays on the stream. Or on the recording. I could do that. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone. It actually sounds incredibly boring to anybody who would want to watch it, but it is a possibility. Meanwhile, as we're burning through cards, we have Halloween Night Mahjong on Steam for $2.99. That's nothing, so it's not making it to the fall list. And we have Mahjong Carnival, which is from the exact same publisher for $2.99. Let's see.
Back straight, eyes forward.
I guess if I just keep going forward, see, I can do this, I suppose, and there's just like no reason to do this. Because I would need to be able to heal 3 times. Here we have a game on Steam called Pheromonium, which looks like it is a... What was that game that was super hard that I played and couldn't actually finish it because like this seems like a direct ripoff of that game. And I can't remember the name of the game. Although in all fairness, it's not like they own that concept. And this looks like more of a Metroidvania, so that takes it in a different range. Cuphead, that's the name of the game I'm thinking of. Take the art of Cuphead, put it in a Metroidvania. Have abilities. $11.69. English and Russian. I mean, it's not just a skin for Cuphead, though. Somebody made a game here. This is $11.69. I gotta put this on the fall list. That's interesting. Okay. 5 damage to everybody. So if I evolve this
My blade is your
and then
salvation.
attack here,
Unbelievable.
and then do this.
Time for judgment and redemption have come.
And that concludes today's sermon.
There we go. And that's a fancy way to win.
So long as there is light.
Here we have a game on Steam called Pistol Master, which is just another low effort aim trainer. Early access free, I guess the price is right, but it's also in VR. If this was more visually polished, I'd put it on the fall list. It's not a terrible looking version. Actually, I will put it on the fall list just in case people like it. Alright. So, as far as missions go, I need to get 3 ranked matches victories, and that's going to take a while. And I also need to clear all the expert puzzles, and I need to do the solo missions for today and probably tomorrow and probably the next day, and just grind in general. So I've got potentially a lot of Shadowverse to play. Meanwhile, I'm going to go through my Twitter feed. I've been streaming for roughly 7 hours straight. It's been a long one because of the new expansion. So it's well past the point at which I should take a break. let's see if there's any new bits of news on this Friday. Here we have a quote from Gamma Sutra from Twitch. Quote, being found to be sexy by others is not against our rules, and Twitch will not take enforcement action against women or anyone on our service for their perceived attractiveness. And Gamma Sutra has a picture of a woman on a inflatable banana in a bikini. But yeah, it's should be fairly obvious at this point that Twitch is secretly just running a Pornhub for people under the age of 15. Like, that was their goal all along. That's where they pushed their viewership to. They've done everything in their ability to promote those promote those kinds of streams while doing nothing to support any other kinds of streams. Yeah. I probably will not finish playing Psychonauts 1 by the time Psychonauts 2 is out. I would almost assume that that's the way that's going to break down. WB Montreal Games will be part of the Play to Cure event organized by Extra Life for Kids for Operation Infant Soleil on May 30th on Twitch. Apparently a lot of people were playing Psychonauts on stream this Friday, so they had organized something. I hadn't heard anything about it, nor is my footage in any way done with collaboration or permission with Double Fine or Microsoft. TechRev has an article here citing concerns regarding public health and safety precautions. Several high-profile publishers will not be physically attending Gen Con 2021, which, if enough people say that, then there won't be a physical Gen Con 2021, I would assume. See, and the problem now is I was streaming for so long that a Empire of the Sin Make It Count expansion has been announced. I'm stupidly opening tabs and talking about them when really I should just talk about them and not open a tab. Otherwise I'm just going to end up talking about them again on Monday. Which arguably, maybe, I don't think I would bother to stream on Saturday, but when a new expansion happens like this, it would make sense to potentially do a special Saturday stream. One of the big problems with Twitch, and what I think people have with Twitch in particular, is the inconsistency of a lot of the enforcement of the rules. When you have shirtless guys being kicked off the platform, but nip slip girls getting single day suspensions at most. Like, we've heard a lot of those scenarios. Now, in all fairness to Twitch, I haven't heard any of those scenarios lately, so maybe they've slightly improved their system or their enforcement, but they don't have a history of good enforcement and fair enforcement. And see, that's something very unique to Twitch. Nobody on YouTube is complaining about YouTube allowing hot tub video game streamers. Nobody on YouTube is complaining that women or girls are getting special treatment. If anything, it's just the top 1% and the hand-picked victors of YouTube that get special treatment, whereas everybody else, regardless of like everybody else, regardless of gender or race or anything, is getting treated terribly on YouTube, and I guess equally terribly for the most part. There are, I suppose, some more conservative right-wing opinions that are particularly getting targeted by YouTube and over-enforced, but that's about it. And I've yet to see a great example of somebody like Steven Crowder, who is suing YouTube. I've yet to see a great example of somebody like him who is not also sometimes doing comedy, who's not also pushing the limits at some point. Like, I'd like to see somebody with completely clean hands potentially get silenced by YouTube. But honestly, by the time YouTube gets to that point in which they do something like that, they'd already have censored out thousands of other people. Apparently, the Twitch is making a new category called pools, hot tubs, and beaches on their live streaming to cordon off risque content. Like, so basically they're making a porn category. Like, there's no other way to put it. They're saying, hey, this is where you go to see this kind of content, but that will do pretty much nothing to stop people from leaking into other categories, because the way Twitch in particular works, as I've seen it, is that if you're not in the top 3 or 4 position of a category, nobody's going to see you or go to your stream. So there's really no reason to be number 100 in the hot tub category when you could just label your video under a different category and then still do the hot tub videos. Yeah. So yeah, there's really no real enforcement there. And I can almost guarantee you there will never be, for the entire life of the hot tub category, I bet there will never be a male streamer in the top 3 positions. Not for any reasonable amount of time. Maybe in the middle of the night, when nobody is watching, somebody will get to the top 30 positions. But at any other point, it's going to be probably closer to the top 20 or top 100 all-female Twitch thoughts. Okay, well, I think I've seen all there is to see, and there isn't any massively important breaking news that we need to talk about. So that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.